What gender-based barriers do women in the global south face? And how can we work to eliminate or at least strive in the midst of and in spite of these barriers? This is Upsurge, the Global Women of Choice podcast. I am your host, Evelyn Oluchukwu, and today I have with me the incredible Sumaiya Akhter. And on this note, I say, let the Upsurge begin.
Hello, I'm Sumaiya Akhter. I'm an educator and researcher, and most of what I'm going to bring to today's conversation comes from lived experience, working within universities, navigating through institutional structures, and also by observing how differently gender authority and opportunities intersect in our everyday academic life. So, hopefully you will enjoy our today's discussion.
It's a promise, and it's a promise. I know everyone will enjoy today's conversation because we've all gone through one form of education or the other. We've experienced one form of educational institution. We've had instructors, we've had educators who have had impact on our lives. So this one is going to be real for everyone listening. So stay tuned and don't touch the dial. Now, Sumaiya, my first question to you. Across primary, tertiary, secondary education, what are the most common professional barriers women educators encounter, and how do these differ by level?
Thank you for your question. It's quite surprising how in our context, in global south context, we find very similar kind of barriers in all the three levels that you have just mentioned, like primary, secondary, and tertiary. You would find out that in primary and secondary levels, the educators, the female educators, they are quite overburdened, I would say, with caregiving expectations and also the administrative tasks that come with the profession. And in this situation, we find out that somehow the leadership roles, they are almost quietly reserved for the male colleagues or the male faculties in those two levels. On the other hand, when we talk about tertiary levels, we find out that the barriers, even though they have transformed into more institutional, seemingly transparent, I would say. However, there are still some opaque promotion criteria. There are also limited access to, let's say, some specific group or some power networks that female faculties or women are excluded from. When we discuss about the primary, secondary, and tertiary, we do have this strange barrier that holds back women from going forward. In some cases, they are visible, and in some cases, they are quite invisible. So yeah, the challenges, they shift from level to level, really.
I'm not surprised really to hear that it's just the same thing from level to level. It's just that as the level goes higher, the challenges become a little bit more sophisticated and probably more pronounced, but ultimately, like you've made us understand, it's all this one same problem. It's all one same problem. Now, secondly, I would like to ask you, many systems claim to be merit-based. In your experience, how does gender subtly or openly shape access to leadership roles and career progression in education?
You know how the leadership roles, they kind of silently get transferred to the man in the room, or let's say in the profession. So even though we claim that merit-based system, they are very neutral sounding, but when we really put it into practice, it is often interpreted through gendered lens, especially in our global south context. We do not seem to really address a woman as the potential leader who would take control of, let's say, the room, the meetings, or even lead a very important let's say project or a potential future goal. And we find that women are continuously asked to prove themselves academically, institutionally, and that's why somehow the leadership opportunities, they tend to go quite obviously to who are visible through different kinds of networks. Again, from my previous answer, I was saying that there were quite power networks that women cannot directly participate due to all these responsibilities that the caregiving experience. They have a lot of societal expectations on them as well. That is why they sometimes, despite being the qualified person, they let go of those opportunities that are offered to them based on merit or the merit-based system. So we find out that our women are mostly in at least academic or educational context. We do not seem to attend meetings that are way after hours of the office hours, or different kind of social gatherings, again a part of the invisible network that women not always participate in. Also, we find out that there are personal mentorships. These kind of mentorships are not commonly offered to women if they want to thrive, if they want to do the professional development. So yeah, sometimes meritocracy seems like a myth to us if we really face those social barriers head on. I guess this is what I think about it.
You really hit the nail on the head when you said merit just seems like a myth. Really, it just seems like something that we just stamp on the wall, something that is just made for the booklets and the criteria that are just put in writing. Because when it gets down to the real things, when it gets down to where decisions are made, the whole gender thing really begins to come up in terms of participation in leadership roles, in terms of professional development, in terms of being passed by for opportunities to truly showcase your talents and stuff like that. So thanks for saying that. Now, I would want to find out from you, how do you say cultural expectations and social norms intersect with institutional policies to limit opportunities for women educators? Cultural expectations, societal norms, what are the social contracts? How do they meet with institutional policies to limit opportunities for women educators?
Thank you for asking this question specifically, because I believe that I think a lot of women in Global South context would love to talk about it openly and I would say courageously, because the moment we point out at this issue, we find out that not every institution would admit that they impose that cultural or societal expectation on their female colleagues or women employees because they want to sound a bit gender neutral, and of course it sounds very high ending. So if we believe that in academia, in educational institution, cultural expectation or the societal norms, they do not exist, or they cease to exist the moment you open the door of an institution, an educational institution, it is not really true, because we find out that no matter how much educational institutions show or promote that they're neutral, they are still within the society, very much a part of a social context. And that is why the whole expectation of women to prioritize family or being modest or accommodate all their male colleagues more, an institution really does not, I would say, they cannot get out of that social expectation, and the cultural expectation. So institutions, they do not really want to acknowledge that they have failed in this intersection. They try to show that they are reinforcing the kind of policies, or I would say different kinds of rules that show that they have overcome these kind of inequalities. They claim, of course, they claim that they have they are not really promoting the cultural expectations, the social norms. However, they do not acknowledge that this kind of opportunity limiting behavior is a part of their policies. I think this is again this is what I think, and I'm sure that there would be a lot of women educator out there who would think the same, but because of the institutional barriers, it's not very easy to admit openly or bravely. That's it.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying because at some level I also happen to be in the sector, and I can tell you that these things they happen. Like, you have a situation where you are shortlisting names for people to go for a professional development course, and then someone says, "Oh, number 3 just got married. Are you sure she will not be on maternity leave before this course ends?" And everyone may say no, but that reasonable doubt is already casted. You understand now? No matter how you try to be gender neutral, someone has already sown that subtle seed that everyone has to think about it. It's a natural cause. Oh, she just got married. We expect her to be going on maternity leave in 9 months, in 1 year. You understand now? Whether it happens or not, whether she goes on that maternity leave or not, there's already that quote. That quote is already there, and so whatever opportunities anyone is enlisting her for, or whatever promotion is, there's already that in 9 months time anything can happen. Let's just watch and see. And that's just to mention a few. For those who are not yet married, everybody is already asking, so when are you inviting us? Oh, when are we coming around? The moment you get married, when are we give? Is the baby teething yet? So all these expectations, you may think they don't matter, but when you look deeply into the scenario, you will definitely see those matters arising. So I appreciate the fact that you brought that up. Now, I would also want to ask you this: what role does mentorship, or the lack of it, play in sustaining or breaking gender-based barriers for women in education and in school leadership?
Okay, this is a very interesting question, because I was talking about a kind of mentorship that it's not possible for most of the women in our context to receive those kind of mentorship. You know how beautifully currently, thanks to global networking, women have stepped out and they are receiving a mentorship, but institutionally, which is still bound based on societal and let's say cultural norms, the institutional mentorship somehow does not they are not offered to women as frequently as they are offered to the male I would say the male colleagues. This is a bit I would say it's a bit invisible. It is invisible in the form of progress. It can be compared to an invisible ladder, really, and this ladder that should be carrying the employees or the educators towards better a better version of themselves. Male academics, I have seen that they have received many benefits in different kinds of informal mentorship, which again it's still within the institution, but it's not available to the female colleagues. So it could be the mentorship, it could be the sponsorship, or someone advocating for, CPD, the continuous professional development, we find out that there is a, we are talking about barriers. There is a barrier, a kind of gendered access. So the male colleagues easily get access to those kind of mentorship, but the female colleagues seem to not always cross that barrier. So they're almost like inside a closed room, I would say. So the person who has the right gender can walk into those rooms of mentorship, but of course, those who are not of the right gender, they cannot access to that mentorship. So even though we generally receive a kind of mentorship that says, oh, work harder, be patient, especially in global south, and in education, in academic scenarios, we deal with students every single day, every single hour, and we are in very difficult situations. We get this common mentorship, we get these common advices to be gentle, to be patient, and if we are diligent enough, if we work hard enough, this kind of situation we can be overcome easily. But I feel like there are some situation, there are some contexts where without direct or active mentorship, we cannot navigate through that complex, or we navigate out of that situation. So when we expect to, overcome the gap, we do need that kind of mentorship. But because we are not of the right gender, we do not receive that invisible mentorship or the ladder that could help us, walk out of a specific tricky situation. So again, it is, I'm not specifically talking of any institution, but rather it is a bit generalized situation right now in the global south due to the societal barriers, that this kind of invisible mentorship that is offered to, let's say, the male colleagues are not always offered to the women colleagues.
Think about unpaid labor, such as care work, emotional work. How do these impact women's professional growth in education compared to their male counterparts?
Thank you for this question. This is actually taken as kind of granted in the global south context. Of course, right now with all this consciousness or the awareness raising events that's happening around unpaid labor, we definitely want to talk about it in academia as well. I think I previously mentioned about how women educators are expected to meet some specific criteria. They are repeatedly taken off different kinds of consideration, because they are expected for fulfilling some kind of caregiving roles. And that's why I think when we mention the whole unpaid labor thing, we automatically filter out our women colleagues, because we know that they are going to carry a lot of emotional, I would say, emotional weight of their families alongside their institutional burdens, like the students, the colleagues, the kind of relation they have with everyone inside the institution. Aside from that, they are kind of taken for granted to fulfill the role of the women in the family. So when we talk about how they are expected to meet deadlines, or let's say attend different kinds of meetings and complete administrative tasks, on top of all of this, we know, without even mentioning, how our women colleagues are already probably dealing with their family issues, their everyday responsibilities with the family. So we would actually see our female colleagues being very drained, very I would say tired and fatigued compared to our male counterparts or our male colleagues, because they are carrying those invisible labor that they do not mention to the colleagues, of course, definitely not inside the institution. So this is definitely one of the I would say invisible barriers for a woman, this unpaid labor that they take, or that they do in their families. And the moment they step inside the gates of the institution, not always they're allowed to talk about it. They cannot really share a lot of things with the colleagues because of professionalism. Of course, they can share it with their friends, but inside the institution, it's not always looked up. It's not encouraged. So if you think of how the women colleagues are, really paying for this kind of unpaid labor, I would say they are paying with their health, their mental peace, and they are definitely taking the toll of two completely different spheres.
Yes, you've made a strong point when you said they are paying with their health, they are paying with their mental health, and their emotional stability. So this is a huge price women have to pay for the unpaid care work they take up in addition to their professional lives. And it's there, it's real. You can't run away from it. You just can't avoid it. During the Christmas, I had some of my work colleagues, they all came over. That was on the 26th. That was 2 days ago. And we made a joke about something, and we talked about someone who was having problems at home and said she was going to threaten her husband with a divorce, and she would give him a divorce from court and he would not be able to sign it. And we were all laughing at her, and we said, before she blinks, that guy would sign that paper, and that he just wants to take a break. And we were like, okay, even you as a woman, if someone offers to give you a break from all the chores, from waking up early to get the kids dressed, from fixing breakfast, from fixing lunch, and we all laughed about how interesting it would be, but it's definitely never going to happen. So yeah, women face these things. Women, especially women with a lot of kids, the dream of the day when they will wake up and they won't have to wake up at 5 a.m., 4 a.m. to fix breakfast, to get the kids ready for school, and to do all that in addition to their own professional career. So those things happen, and we can't shy away from them. Now, have you observed any difference in how women educators' authority, expertise, or leadership style are perceived compared to that of men? And not just perceived by the institution, now perceived even by the people they're trying to educate, and perceived by relatives at home and all of that. How do you feel that women educators' authority and expertise, and even their leadership style, is perceived generally when compared to men's? Definitely.
That's a very deep question. I'm not confident that I will be able to really go deep into this. However, I think I have mentioned a few times that some of these are a bit obvious. There is a notable difference, of how the women educators' authority or the expertise is taken. It's taken along with a grain of salt, thinking that, okay, this person has authority, but then they have other obligations. So it means that even if they are, let's say, if they are experts, they might not be as engaged to a specific task compared to a male, let's say, male colleague. That is again something that we have always taken. We have considered it as a very common thing or a common practice. If we talk about authority also, the moment I hear the word authority, it just reminds me of how we treat our students, how we want to take control of a classroom and impose our authority on the students. So there is a very interesting situation. I think it happened a few times from my personal experience, that the students in the classroom would currently, of course, thanks to the internet and all the social media, the students has started to consider the teachers as friends or someone whom they can take liberty on. So they would make inappropriate jokes, and they would try to kind of, disrupt the class flow, the flow of the class. I found out that they do this kind of practice less in the male teachers' classes compared to that of the female teachers' class. In the male teachers' class, they do not act as naughty or as unruly like they do in their female teachers classroom. So if if the male teacher, let's say, speaks loudly to them, like to control the classroom, it's taken as a proper action or to control the class or to show their authority. Yes. And but if a female teacher, if they show that same behavior, if they speak loudly or try to control the class, that would seem like an aggressive behavior. So just when you said that as authority, how it is observed differently, I think this is one example that popped in my mind, that okay, I think I have gone through this once. Another thing is that why our behavior in trying to impose authority in the classroom or in a meeting, let's say, why is it seen as showing attitude, being a bit aggressive or controlling? Because I think we have always tried to promote women as a bit nurturing, but of course competent, but yet nurturing. On the other hand, it's not the same. It's the expectation from men is not same, just like as it is for the women. Men are not really holding an emotional standard, I would say, because for women the emotion works, or the sentiment works more deeply. When you see a woman teacher, you almost try to replace that person as a motherly figure. But for a male teacher, it is not always considering them as a fatherly figure, but more like someone who is a guide, who is a leader, who is taking lead to guide the students somewhere. But for female teachers, it's a nurturing. It's a bit like almost like a mother figure. So you see that there is a difference between a man teacher and a female teacher, and the kind of expectation we have for each of them. There is this difference of the expectation from both the gender. So this double expectation, I would say, is definitely something that we see commonly in not only in classroom but also in different other positions as well. So when we talk about authority, we talk about leadership, we see that yes, the male colleagues and the female colleagues are actually perceived quite differently.
Yeah, I would have been surprised if you did not mention that, because the truth is, when a female teacher stands in front of the class, that there's always the difference. When a male teacher comes in, even without saying a word, you see the way the whole class falls silent. Then there's the slight difference when the teacher happens to be a woman. And like, I love the way you said it. That one did cross my mind. When you said the female teacher is always perceived as a mother, when you look at her, you see this nurturing, you see the caring, you see the willingness to impart knowledge, just like the mother. But when you see a male teacher, what you see is, you see authority, you see a leader, you see someone who is here to tell you what to do. So yeah, I love the fact that you raised that point. Now, as we round up today's conversation, if you could speak directly to policymakers and institutional leaders today, what is the one truth about women educators that you believe they urgently need to hear?
Thank you for this question. I think many women educators would really like to be in my position and would look for an opportunity to talk to the policymakers and, of course, the leaders directly. There is this one thing I probably say to the policymakers is that even though the transparency, the neutrality, it's all on the surface, it shows that the women educated, they are not truly lacking ambition or competence or even commitment, really. The women are equally ambitious, they are committed. But one thing that is truly lacking is the kind of fairness based on the societal expectation or the cultural norms. We do not receive the fairness, the kind of equal opportunity, or if we say that equity, the kind of equal treatment that we probably deserve in this situation. So when we ask our female colleagues to adapt to work pressure, that, oh, your male colleagues are handling the pressure, why can't you? Because you are both in the same position, you are both in the same let's say payroll. It is a bit unfair to the women because they hold more accountability, not only to the institution, the academic institution, but to the social institutions as well, to the whole society. They are held more accountable if they fail in any of these tasks. So the kind of interrogation that a woman faces for failing in one task, the male colleagues don't face the same kind of questioning and the same kind of I would say accountability. So even based on structures, if the policymakers create a structure claiming that it is equal for both men and women in the academia, it actually is not. So we would find that most of our female colleagues are silent because they know that despite the voices being heard everywhere, nothing has changed over years. So on the surface, it shows that there is equality, but in the end, based on mentorship or even based on any kind of let's say any kind of professional opportunities, we still see that there is a kind of glass ceiling over the women's head. So I think that for the policymakers, I would say that if possible, try to make things easier. Not easier to compromise with standard, but making it easier means giving the women colleagues the time they truly need to make an impact. And I can promise that our female colleagues are amazing. They have those I would say they have those promise, they have that mentality to bring that impact. What they only lack is the support, the proper support that suits them. And I think this is where I should stop saying anything anymore. But I hope that the message is clear.
Thank you so much, Sumaiya. Thank you so much, Sumaiya. Thank you, everyone, for listening. That brings us to the end of today's conversation. Thank you for joining us on Upsurge. Until we come again next week, do have a great day. Remember to like, remember to subscribe, remember to follow us on Spotify, and remember that you are the real Upsurge. So thanks for listening, and thank you, Sumaiya, for joining us.